Good evening, and welcome back to the definitive source for in-depth celebrity analysis. Welcome to News Around. In an era defined by the relentless curation of romance, where affection is too often measured in megapixels and the backdrop of infinity pools, we have become accustomed to a certain kind of performance. We expect our high-profile couples to present their love stories to us in carefully grand gestures, shielded by velvet ropes and filtered through the lens of unattainable luxury. Yet, occasionally, something breaks through the noise of this orchestrated perfection, something so quietly authentic that it reframes our entire understanding of what a romantic escape can actually mean. Today, we are turning our gaze toward Cemre Arda and Gökberk Yıldırım, a duo who recently managed to dominate the digital airwaves not by shouting, but by whispering. Their latest getaway was a masterclass in understatement, a rejection of the usual clichés about secrecy and extravagance that surround stardom. It was not an exclusion of the world, but rather an inclusion of what truly matters. The most captivating element of their journey was not the longitude or latitude of their destination, nor the thread count of their hotel sheets, but the presence of a very small, very significant third party, Mavi, Cemre's adored niece. Before we dissect why these simple images felt like a revolution in celebrity culture, I must remind you of the importance of supporting independent, nuanced journalism. If you appreciate these deep dives that go beyond the headlines, please ensure you are subscribed to News Around. And for those who wish to become the true pillars of our community, I invite you to click the join button right next to the subscribe icon. Your membership allows us to continue crafting these detailed narratives. Now, let us step onto the sand with Cemre, Gökberk, and Mavi. When the first images from their retreat began to circulate, they arrived like a cleansing tonic after months of industry noise and manufactured spectacle. The visual language was immediately striking for what it lacked. There were no sweeping aerial drone shots of chartered yachts, no perfectly staged champagne toasts on teak decks, and no choreographed displays of affection designed for maximum engagement. Instead, what was presented to the public was something stripped down to its absolute elemental essence: the sprawling blue expanse of the water, the pale, receptive sand, and three human beings existing within it. Cemre and Gökberk, two individuals whose professional lives are governed by relentless schedules that would crush lesser spirits, endless days under studio lights, back-to-back press junkets, and high-stakes meetings, chose to carve out a precious pocket of time. The radical decision was not just taking a break, it was how they chose to fill that void. By inviting Mavi into this sacred space, they transformed what could have been a typical romantic getaway into a profound love letter to the concept of family. It quietly posed a provocative question to the celebrity ecosystem. What if the most romantic thing two people can do is not to consume joy in secret, but to invite a child to share in it? By the time the second wave of photographs landed on social media timelines, it became irrefutably clear that this was not the usual celebrity retreat where relaxation is merely another form of performance. The atmosphere radiating from the images was devoid of pretense. No one looked like they were trying to convince the camera they were having a good time, they simply were. The transformation of Cemre Arda was perhaps the most immediate and striking narrative thread. Known for an authenticity that has become her trademark in a landscape often characterized by artifice, she seemed to shed the skin of the public figure the moment her feet touched the sand. In her place emerged a role far older and more instinctual: the protective, attentive aunt, attuned not to the camera lens, but to the shifting tide line and the intensity of the midday sun on delicate skin. In the candid snaps that emerged, Cemre was never posing. She was captured in motion, kneeling in the wet sand, deeply engrossed in the architecture of helping Mavi line up seashells, her gaze tracking the child's reactions with that tuned-in intensity we recognize from her most grounded on-screen performances. One could read a quiet but firm principle in how she navigated through the day. Success, no matter how stratospheric, is only truly meaningful if the people you love are there to feel it with you. Guests who happened to be sharing the same stretch of coastline described a Cemre who seemed to breathe using a different rhythm, her shoulders loosened from their usual professional brace, her voice softened by the sea air, her priorities unmistakably rearranged to place Mavi at the center of her universe. This consistency between her public persona and her private conduct did not go unnoticed by fans. It is exceptionally easy to talk about values when microphones are trained on you. It is infinitely harder to live them when no one is supposed to be watching. What the world witnessed was the practiced tenderness of someone who knows that the real statements in life aren't written in press releases, they are repeated in small acts of care. And then, there was the revelation that had the internet collectively melting into one elongated sigh of appreciation: Gökberk Yıldırım. In the collective imagination of the audience, he has been cast, time and again, as the iron-willed lead, the man who wears silence like a suit of armor, whose intensity is his defining characteristic. Yet, the lens of this vacation found him completely unlocked, as if the combination of sea breeze and childish laughter had unlatched a door that only a child possessed the key to. One specific sequence set social media platforms ablaze with admiration. Mavi, perched triumphantly on his shoulders as he waded steadily into the churning water, his large hands securing her small legs while she squealed in delight at the approaching foam. The angle of the photograph caught his expression in the liminal space between movements, a beautiful blend of fierce concentration on her safety and unadulterated joy. That single frame communicated, clearer than any long-form interview ever could, that this is a man capable of slowing down his entire existence to bend his world to a child's rhythm. In subsequent images, he was seen crouched in the sand beside Seamra, assisting in the construction of a sprawling sand fortress with the same precise dedication he brings to getting a scene exactly right. There was zero forced cheerfulness, no brand-friendly grinning for the sake of optics. Just total absorption in the moment. Fans flooded comment sections with a kind of affectionate awe, recognizing that this wasn't a publicity-friendly pose, but a genuine reveal of character. I have to pause here and ask you, the insightful community of Newsaround, how did seeing this softer, paternal side of Gökberk affect your perception of him? Does seeing an actor known for intense, serious roles melt into a puddle for a child make you appreciate his on-screen work even more? I know it certainly added a layer of depth for me. Share your thoughts in the comments below, I read them all. Perhaps one of the most complete and satisfying details of this entire narrative saga was how effortlessly Gökberk folded himself into the established aunt-niece rhythm between Cemre and Mavi. He did not hover tentatively on the periphery, careful not to disrupt an existing bond, he became essential to it. In the observations of those nearby, he anticipated what needed doing and executed it without needing to be asked, whether that meant scouting for a shady spot when the noon sun became too harsh or reinforcing the moat of a sandcastle when the incoming tide threatened its structural integrity. The trio moved across the landscape like a small, self-contained constellation, each person making the other two shine a little brighter by their presence. The tonal shift across social media was striking to behold. Instead of the usual petty debates and cynical deconstructions that cling like barnacles to celebrity posts, the conversation brimmed with a profound gratitude for normalcy. Across languages and time zones, the narrative landed with the same impact. This didn't feel like public relations. It felt like a relief. More than a few astute observers interpreted Mavi's inclusion as irrefutable proof of bedrock stability between Seamra and Gökberk. You do not share a trip of this nature with a toddler if the relationship is tentative or undefined. You do it when there is a shared picture of tomorrow, a vision of the future that naturally expands to include small hands and sandy shoes. Even on the rare occasions the couple was approached by admirers, their response was consistent with the quiet dignity of the week: a smile, a friendly exchange, a quick photo, and then an immediate return to the day's unhurried rhythm. They neither performed availability nor constructed impenetrable walls of ego. Their eventual return to the bustling energy of Istanbul told its own story, a coda to the quiet symphony of the week. Photographed by the press in soft, comfortable clothing, moving with easy, synchronized strides, they looked like people who had successfully managed to empty the mental inbox, if only for a moment. They didn't stop to answer specific questions from reporters, but the way they moved, physically close, unhurried, their skin brushed by the sun, was a version of language that made verbal explanations entirely unnecessary. If one was paying close attention, it was evident that the trip had accomplished exactly what it was designed to do: a total recalibration. Inside the industry, the question now humming in conference rooms and casting offices is what happens next for these two powerhouses. Both of them are heading into months that will pull relentlessly at their time, focus, and energy. New scripts are being reviewed, potential global collaborations are being discussed, and the pressure cooker of fame is set to resume its whistling. Yet, the pictures from this escape function like an emotional compass. It doesn't matter how chaotic the route gets in the coming months if you remember where the center is. Sources close to the pair insist there was no hidden agenda behind any of this, no secret campaign launch, no stealth strategy to alter public perception. They simply wanted to breathe in the same space and share that breath with a child who adores them. Paradoxically, that lack of strategy is precisely why the message traveled so far and resonated so deeply. Cemre Arda and Gökberk Yıldırım didn't need a clever tagline or a glossy magazine spread to define who they are to each other. Their silence under a shared beach umbrella, their footprints alongside Mavy's tiny ones, their patient, hours-long game of keep the waves away. Those were the statements. Sometimes, we forget that the truest form of publicity is living in a way that cannot be faked, even if one tried. There is something quietly radical in watching two people at the absolute zenith of visibility choose presence over performance. After all those years of polish, lighting, and sound stages, what steals the breath of the public isn't a blockbuster scene, but a small fortress of sand that the tide will inevitably erase by dusk. Maybe that is the entire lesson they taught us this week. Maybe success, when it finally arrives in all its overwhelming power, isn't about the penthouse view or the photo-approved dinner party. Maybe it's having the right people perched securely on your shoulders, trusting you implicitly to carry them safely through the froth and the foam of life. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into a moment of genuine connection in the celebrity world. If this closer look at Cemre Arda and Gökberk Yıldırım gave you a new perspective on them, please tap that like button. It helps push this kind of thoughtful storytelling further out into the algorithmic sea. Don't forget to subscribe to Newsaround so you never miss an analysis of your favorite stars. And once again, a massive thank you to our Join members. You are the reason we can do this work. Until next time, may your own escapes be authentic, and your sandcastles stand tall against the tide. Goodbye.